Welcome to Season 3 of the Animal Highlight, which has been extracted from Season 5 of the Animal Turn podcast that is focused on animals and biosecurity. As you know, in the Animal Highlight, we give relatively short episodes that provide insights and stories into the lives of animals. And this season is looking at animals and biosecurity. On the Animal Turn, we focused on concepts as wide-ranging as keeping life safe, what biosecurity means, and how it's related to things such as health, politics, and ethics. But in this podcast, we're focused on the animals that are kind of caught up in these biosecurity dramas. And I'm joined this season with a co-host, and that's Amanda Bunten-Walberg, who at the time of recording was a PhD candidate at Queen's University's School of Environmental Studies. Her research explored more than human ethics in contagious contexts through the case study of bats and COVID-19. Mandy is particularly interested in how more than human ethics, critical race theory, queer theory, and biopolitical theory might guide humans towards developing more ethical relationships with animals, particularly those who are understood as diseased. I had a great time talking to Amanda throughout the season. I learned so much from her. And I'm also extremely thankful to the sponsors of the season, Animals in Philosophy, Politics, Law and Ethics, A.P.P.L.E, as well as the Biosecurities and Urban Governance Collective, sponsored this season of the Animal Turn podcast, where this content has been taken from. I hope you enjoy the season and the numerous animals that we dive into. I do want to say up front, unfortunately, throughout the season, we did run into a couple of sound and technical issues. I don't think they get in the way too much, but I just wanted to flag it for you here in case you find yourself feeling a bit frustrated. I don't think they're too bad. I think you'll survive, but it's always better to warn you ahead of time. Other than that, happy listening. In this Animal Highlight, Amanda focuses on mosquitoes. Arguably one of the most vilified animals when it comes to the spread of disease, Amanda tries instead to reflect on some of their sensory experiences, thinking more deeply about these dynamic creatures. Okay, Mandy, welcome back. We've got the fourth Animal Highlight. Can you believe that it's already the fourth episode, which is kind of exciting?
Yeah, super exciting. And no, I cannot believe it.
Yeah, I know you like me. I really enjoyed listening to Christos. Oh, I mean, I didn't listen. I did Christos's episode, and it was a great conversation. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have in store for us today. I believe we're going to be speaking about mosquitoes.
Yeah, we're going to look at mosquitoes, and just to give folks a little bit of background info in making this highlight, I drew mostly from the book Mosquito by Richard Jones. And I also drew a little bit from the book Superfly by Jonathan Balcombe.
Oh, I love Jonathan Balcombe.
Oh, he's so wonderful.
Yeah, when I had him on the show, he's also just a nice guy, but his reading, I love reading his work. Anyway, I shouldn't gush, but I'm gushing.
Such a good storyteller, yeah. So, why mosquitoes? Well, they're at the center of some of the world's most pressing biosecurity concerns. The 2021 Center for Disease Control's World Mosquito Day campaign had this ad that just boldly claimed that mosquitoes cause more death and disease than any other animal on the planet. And I'm not going to dig into that claim right now, but I do want to take a closer look at these beings who are blamed for so much death and disease and who are almost universally hated. So when many of us think of mosquitoes, we kind of just think of them as this undifferentiable mass of biting pests, but there's actually so much diversity among them. So there's over 3,500 species of mosquitoes in the world, and these mosquito species all will have different preferences for feeding, breeding, flying, roosting, biting, etc. They're also stunningly diverse and actually quite beautiful to look at, which I found very surprising. For example, the Asian tiger mosquito has these really striking black and white stripes, or the Sabates cyaneus mosquito is breathtaking. They have this stunning combination of iridescent purples and blues and these really beautiful fringes on their legs that look like feathers. So they're quite beautiful. Many people don't realize that. But aside from the species diversity, there's also individual diversity, which sadly we know very little about. But it's estimated that at any given time, there's roughly 110 trillion mosquitoes on Earth, which I can't even fathom. And each one of these is a unique individual. So I think that's important to note.
Yeah, and I think in general we all tend to struggle, I think, a bit with thinking about insects as having personalities or individuality.
And I think so much more work needs to be done in kind of garnering that kind of understanding and attention to individuals. Now, mosquitoes who humans encounter when we get bitten, that's primarily the mosquitoes who we know, they're actually only a small fraction of the world's mosquitoes. So most adult mosquitoes get their energy for their daily activities by consuming plant nectar. And in fact, it's only certain species of adult female mosquitoes who need to consume protein-rich blood at a very specific life stage, which enables them to, allow their eggs to grow and mature. And they have these incredible senses of smell and chemical detection. So those mosquitoes who bite humans can actually sense and hunt the pulses of CO2 that we exhale. And then they can actually differentiate these pulses from more continuous concentrations or emissions in the air. And once they've closed in on their desired human target, who is roughly 100 million times bigger than them, so again, this unfathomable number.
You're just throwing big numbers around.
Another unfathomable number.
I'm saying now 100 trillion, million, billion. I'm just like, my mind is slowly like withering away. Like I've just got this, okay.
I feel the exact same way. And I can't even imagine. So they're encountering us, often having to maneuver around swatting arms or limbs. And I can't even imagine what that experience is like for them to be swatted at by a being of celestial proportions compared to them.
Well, I mean, I guess we wouldn't even be a being, right? Like our bodies are like a landscape, right? They're traversing over a massive landscape, and there's just like, it's the scales are just hard to even think through.
Yeah, the scales in this context are so fascinating. In addition to kind of that intensity of scale range, there's also a lot going on with mosquitoes. So, for example, the Aedes aegypti mosquito was found in one study to remember the experience of swats and near misses, along with the associated scent. And then they would make decisions to move to safer locations and targets. So they're not only hunting and scent tracking, they're also evading, remembering, minimizing risk.
Are they, I don't know if you'll know this, but are they social animals? So like we tend to think of bees as, creating hives and ants as working in particular ways. And I know not all bees are that way, but I don't even know this about mosquitoes. Like, do mosquitoes have nests or hives or?
And to be honest, I'm not sure because I know they roost. I don't know how communal that would be. And I was even reading a book entirely dedicated to mosquitoes, and it's an excellent book that I highly recommend. But I was left craving and longing for some sense of their social worlds that feels really sort of lacking in our understanding of mosquitoes. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't answer that. So we've got the mosquito evading hunting the human and evading their swinging limbs. Now, their bodies can make really nuanced maneuvers and they have impact absorbing legs. So this means that they're capable of doing these sort of gentle landing hovers and then really light touchdowns. So they're more likely to land on us undetected. And now for the exciting part, now comes the bite. So female mosquitoes have a beak that is mainly a sheath that then protects an inner lance, which is the part that does the penetrating. And in certain species, the lance consists of 6 interlocking blades. 4 of these are sawtoothed at the tip. So this blew my mind because I always had this sense that they would delicately slide this fine needle into our flesh. But after learning this, I now imagine them just sawing away at us like little lumberjacks. And one of these blades has a tube running down, which injects a lubricating saliva that actually has anticoagulant properties. And the saliva is what causes our body to often react with an inflamed and itchy bump. And then there's the straw-like tongue at the center of it all, which they suck up blood through. So a lot going on when a mosquito bites a human. And this whole process typically takes 2.5 to 3 minutes. The process from once they land to finish feeding takes 2.5 to 3 minutes. Any more time and they're likely to be noticed. And in this time, they only drink a fraction of a drop of blood, or 1 to 5,000ths of a milliliter. So again, we're moving from these giant scales to teeny scales. I really wonder what the experience of feeding on a human must be like for them. I wonder if it's thrilling, if it's terrifying, does it feel too rushed? And I really am taken by how this experience might contrast with the majority of mosquitoes who feed on plant nectar. So would that experience be more leisurely? Would they have time to savor their meals or maybe refine their preferences? And I also want to point out that mosquitoes are both aquatic beings and beings of the air. So they lay eggs in water, and the larvae grow in these aquatic environments. We often don't necessarily think of them as aquatic beings, but this kind of inspires me to imagine, like, what is the experience of larvae who, for example, grow in expansive rice paddies that could theoretically produce more mosquitoes than grains of rice, except for the fact that they also house numerous fishes who eat the larvae. And then it makes me wonder, like, okay, how would this experience differ or compare with the experiences of larvae who live in a rain barrel, for example, that's comparatively absent of predators?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, we don't spend a lot of time, I think, considering or thinking about insects. So that's really important. And I think this ties in nicely with Christos' episode with the epidemiological individual, because I know we focused on rats, and certainly much like rats, mosquitoes have been blamed for a lot of disease around the world, and not without reason, right? Mosquitoes have been attached to massive amounts of disease and threats of disease and devastation that hasn't been taken seriously in many parts of the world. So yeah, it's really, I always find that it's really difficult and complicated to have these relationships, to be attentive to what the experiences are of specific animals and their claim to be in the world, while at the same time recognizing that these are not always friendly relationships, right? Like we have fraught relationships, and we also are part of ecologies and situations and environments that I think just the scales you were talking at there, our kind of capacity, the limits of our own brains as apes is also limited when it comes to understanding these kinds of scales and worlds. It is remarkable.
I appreciate you saying that, because I don't want to make light of malaria, for example, which just has a huge death toll, and particularly on marginalized populations. But at the same time, if you turn to the work of folks like Neil Ahuja, for example, they can help to offer insight into the ways in which mosquitoes have been singularly blamed as a way to sort of ignore the role of, for example, colonialism in the spread of these like horrific diseases. So yeah, I really appreciate those points you've made.
No, that's excellent. Well, thank you so much. And this has been really enlightening. Thank you to Animals in Philosophy, Politics, Law and Ethics, A.P.P.L.E, as well as the Biosecurities and Urban Governance Research Collective for sponsoring Season 5 of the Animal Turn podcast, where this content was extracted from. Thank you also goes to Amanda Bunten-Walberg for being an incredible co-host, and to Rebecca Shen for doing and designing the episode and podcast artwork. This episode was edited by Christiaan Mentz and produced by myself. Just a reminder to please rate and review this podcast wherever you listen. This is The Animal Highlight with me, Claudia Hirtenfelder.